All right, welcome everybody. We are back with episode 3. I don't know if this is an episode count or we're even doing at this point.
Yeah.
But the point is we're here to talk about Midjourney, all the things that are happening right now, which is just pure chaos. And some of the things that you and I say back and forth about this bended reality, so to speak, of what's happening with AI and maybe even on a micro level image generation and how these lines are really starting to get blurred is kind of fascinating. So we're going to dive into what's happening with Midjourney because there are a lot of changes that have already rolled out. There are more changes that are coming before the end of the year, right? So I think this is probably the fastest moving month where there's so much shifting in real time since Midjourney started.
It's wild.
Really. It is a little bit wild. So, of course, I've got with me Rory Flynn, and I'm Drew Brucker, and we're going to be diving in and hopefully showing you guys a little bit of like hands-on visual stuff with what's happened on Midjourney's website. They've sort of made that shift away from Discord. You and I have talked a lot about this. You have any initial thoughts? Just kind of kick things off.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be really good for new users, right? Because it's way more user friendly than it is for someone that, let's just say, hasn't been on the platform for a while. I got on there yesterday and I was like, all right, let me just really dive into this and see if I can do all the stuff that I want to do. Let me push it to the brink. And it can do a lot of stuff, but I'm still a Discord truther at this point. I still love Discord and I love the way it functions now that I've been accustomed to it for a year. But overall, I think if they're going to roll it out and get it to a bigger audience, it has to be like this, right? It's just Discord seems to be the thorn in their side for new users and people. Like the learning curve is not just the tool, but it's also learning Discord too. So they're learning two things. So now the UX is clean. And also I was just surprised with the site speed. It's pretty fast. I was expecting it to be clunkier and slower. But the generations happen fast, everything clicks into place really fast. So I was like, all right, good job, guys. Kudos. But it's we're moving quick. I was just in the open forum on their Discord channel, on one of their private channels, just riffing with some people. It's pure chaos in there if anyone wants to go, just read some really funny comments. But it seems like they're moving stuff. They hear the feedback and they're moving on it. So, this stuff's going to develop pretty quick. I think it's going to, the website will look different in 2 weeks than it does today. I have a feeling we just have to come to expect that.
Yeah. And, the slow release of some of the features, right, is, I think that's maybe one of the points that you just kind of hate to some degree because, you and I have talked about sort of the custom zoom stuff. I know that's been a big thorn for you. You pointed that out yesterday, right? I think that's a great point, is the ability to dynamically change the dimensions of an image, right? There. And right now you can't do that. So you almost have to still prompt in Discord in that way. Mm-hmm. And same, when it comes to the very region or the painting part of it, right? So
that's not there.
You either have to just kind of keep using Discord, or you're going to take an image and maybe you don't like the hands, and then you're going to have to take that into Photoshop to clean it up or something, which kind of, I think, I just wish that were done already, because I think that would make the transition a little bit easier. And, they've done such a great job with some of the other things, but I don't think they needed pan in there right now.
That's probably if there's one feature that I utilize the least, it's pan. Way more concerned about custom zoom. I said it in my, the video I did yesterday, but sometimes you don't need all of 1.5 on the zoom out. Sometimes it's just, I need 1.2 or 1.1, just a little bit extra, so it's not even for that feature, but really switching the aspect ratios, because that's such a massive thing, I think, for everyone here, right? If I generate something in, 1:1, and then I want to make it 9:16. All you really had to do is type in custom zoom 1 and then change the aspect ratio. And it was, bang, you could just switch that image to any aspect ratio you wanted. So now without that, it's you can't switch formats, which to me was that was one of the best things they did, because, if anyone was using this stuff, in their day to day or in their job or whatever, You got to repurpose things all the time. It's like, oh, this works on a presentation, but it doesn't work in a carousel. So let me switch up the format. So yeah, that one's annoying. Vari region, I use it, but it's really only when I really like something and I just want to like clean something up. So it's good. Some of the other stuff that is that's kind of been left out, I feel like they're going to add it back in. But talking about the the good stuff too, like Describe is 10 times better. That's just a personal. I think it's off Discord now. I tried to use it on Discord this morning, and it's not. I typed in /Describe. It didn't. Nothing pulled up. So I think,
Really,
like maybe we'll do that live just to make sure that I'm not an idiot. That it didn't just like totally.
yeah. Hey, let's make this a little visual too. Do you want to pull up the new site, or do you want me to? How do you want to work that?
Yeah, I can pull this up. Let's do that.
Yeah, we're gonna talk through that and show you guys a little bit too. I think we both tried to give a little bit of a sneak peek into that yesterday with our post, right? Just kind of showing you guys around some of the things, talking through that very quickly. But we can dive into that a little bit deeper today. We can also answer any specific questions you have. So, what we love to do with these sessions is make this interactive. So we want to treat this like an AMA. You guys have questions, throw them out there. We're going to answer them for you. I think the other thing that you brought up, similar to Describe, but like the whole functionality of the click to putting it directly into the prompt box is pretty amazing. I mean, I think we all got used to the copy paste, or there was a shortcut where you could press the up button, to repeat the same command and not have to type it in. But those are kind of, I think, things that feel like those OG moments where you're just like never going to forget them. But you kind of love to hate it, and you're kind of glad that it's gone. I mean, I will say that I love the ability to just click to add things to the prompt, right? So I don't have to take my hands off the mouse and do this and type and then go back, right? It's very much set up for a ease of workflow type of use.
100%, man. I'm like, that's the one thing where I was like, okay, I can get way fast in here. Can you see my screen, by the way? Is this working?
Yes. Let me add it to the stage here. There we go.
All right, cool. I was just making sure here, but yeah, I mean, the new website is just super cool. Like, what I also love about, like, even just going through this right now, if my screen is on here, because I'm trying to look at two things at once. Like the explore page, being able to just access this really quick, because that used to be, a little bit harder. Like when you're scrolling through here, like, oh, I really like something, let me copy paste it, do all the things in Discord. Like now this stuff is super simple. Just use prompt, hit enter. Like, it's two pushes of a button. You don't got to copy paste anymore. Like that stuff to me is so useful, because I tend to use Explore when I don't know what I'm looking for, if that makes sense. Like I use this just to like get some different inspiration, because like I never prompt in any of these styles, right? Like I never look at, retro futuristic alien stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and sometimes I need something like this, like raspberries. Cool. Use the prompt. So let's see what it is. Then I'll go in there and then I'll edit the prompt, right? So sometimes it's super simple. You take this fresh raspberries, you can open one of these, you can use this prompt. Like, all right, let's just, we can take professional color grading out. Let's just do, like instead of sharp focus, let's just do, cinematic lighting. And like, this is a good way to just understand like how to utilize these tools and like how to play with them, because now it's just way quicker than it used to be. So some of that simple stuff, right? Like getting access to the Explorer. Like, I mean, that to me was, all right, I can just like really go and prompt at will now. But it's interesting, man. I mean, that and the Describe feature, like total game changer in terms of where it was a week ago and where it is now.
Yeah, totally. Hey, so I see a couple people in here too that may be a little bit newer. They maybe weren't fans of Discord, right? Mm-hmm. So let's take a step back for a second too. This is a really good time to get into Midjourney, right? So Jill, any advice for someone very new to Midjourney who wants to explore and get a sense for how it works? Now's the time, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have to, right? We've already talked about sort of the Discord obstacle, right? So part of it is utilizing a new, app or technology or piece of software that you've never used before. That's one. But then, the language that you have to use in Discord to prompt for Midjourney is a new thing, right? And there are a lot of things that just take time and reps to get an understanding for, that now, right, you have the ability to control utilizing things like that slider feature. So Rory, just kind of hover over that too while you've got your screen shared.
Let's do
But
this.
like,
so like something, are you talking about these kind of sliders here?
well, the go up to that, the imagine box with that slider to the right.
Oh, okay. I
Where
see what you're saying.
select, stylize, and all that.
Like
So,
this.
so Jill, like, and anybody else that's new, these were all things that you really had to be using Midjourney for a while. And I even know people that have been using Midjourney for a while that don't know how to use these. And now the ease of use, right, has become, it's just much more suited for somebody that's just now coming in, right? Because you can really experiment with these without knowing all the parameters and the backslash and the dash and all these other things that came with the commands and the parameters. And so that's a really nice touch. So, you know, Jill, my advice would just be to play around with the sliders in here and, you know, kind of get a sense for what they are. I think Rory also made this point in his video yesterday, but like if you hover over those things too, I think they even give you a short description, right? Which those things weren't there either. You know, when we showed up on Discord, none of us knew what the hell we were doing. And so all of this, I think, is better suited for people that are just starting out and trying to get a sense of how they're going to use the tool. You, Rory, you got anything to add on that?
No, I think it's just like the parameters are probably some of the biggest aspects of Midjourney, right? And those probably felt like the most inaccessible unless you were using it at a really high level and using it at volume, because it's something you have to learn. It feels like you're coding, right? It's just like, you know, there wasn't really like a workflow to get this like really into your image set every single time. Now it's here. Now it's easy. Right. So even like something like looking at even visualizing this, right? This sounds so stupid, but visualizing the aspect ratio. So I know what it looks like. Like to me, that's just a super nice touch.
Great
but the
point.
stylized, right? Like giving the values here, because unless you were going and digging through their website, which is what, you know, we were doing to try and figure this stuff out, you know, you would never know what stylized was. You wouldn't know that, you know, the different value ranges and how it affected everything. And then, you know, you can test it now, which is way, way better. Or you can set your defaults, which is, you know, you were basically utilizing Midjourney's defaults unless you knew what you were doing. So now you can kind of set your own, which is, you know, I think it's a lot better. And then even something as simple as switching between the versions here, which is, you know, it's fun to go back to the other ones because sometimes that stuff produces better. And now we have other tools that, you know, if you want to produce something in 5.1 or 5 and then bring it into another tool to upscale it and make it look a little bit cleaner, like those versions of the model like produce significantly different outputs than it does.
5.1 still got some really good use cases.
Some juice. Yeah. 5 was good too. I liked 5 a lot. And then it was, you know, 5.2 got way more intense, if that makes sense. From like a visual standpoint, way more saturation, way more colors, things like that. But yeah, I think it's like these sliders are really important. And I think it's just going to make this ease of use for the new users like 10x, because that was something that's probably the hardest learning curve. I mean, I've talked to people who use this thing for 6 months and didn't even know like what chaos was, you know? So like now even that, we should probably highlight that too. If you're, you know, using this, chaos has now been changed to variety, which makes way more sense.
There's the question right there.
Well, I'm missing the question. What is it?
Oh, the question. Yeah. So I just bubbled up a question that Glenn asked. It says, is chaos now variety? So yes.
Okay. Didn't even see that, but right on time. So it's now it's variety. It's just much more, let's put it this way. It's way more understandable than it used to be, because chaos was like, what the hell does that mean? You know, am I just adding more chaos?
Let's do this. I think we got one other question in here. Then maybe what we should do is like put together a few prompts so that way both beginners and people that will be using the new site here when it's released to everybody under 10K can get a sense of how this really works for us. One other thing to point out. So if you look at the top of Rory's browser, it says alpha.midjourney.com. If you've generated over 10,000 images, you can go to this site and you can see if you have access to this. If you haven't generated 10,000 images, you'll probably have it next week. It's not going to be a long wait. But we figured this was pretty timely to show you and give you some comfortability going into it. So I don't know, Rory, do you want to like back up, maybe just prompt something like you did yesterday on the spot, and we can just kind of like showcase even like, I don't know, maybe something like the describe as well, and just kind of show how easy some of this is to piece together. Or, you know what, we were looking at the explore page too. That could also be an option.
Yeah. So let's just run through like a quick prompt, right? Like we're going to if we go to the create, basically the one thing that's different here, right? When you were on Discord, if you were clicking into an image, you had all these different options, right? Like to do everything. That's now all over here. We'll go into that in a second, but let's start from like the beginning, right? So we'll just do like, a Jeep in Cusco, Peru, and we'll just enter it. Super simple, right? Like you don't have to type \imagine anymore. Just let it ride. Everything will generate here in your create page. The good thing that I like about this is the way that it's organized now. In here, there's things I like about the organization, things I don't like. But one thing is that I just like seeing the prompt next to it very clearly and the parameters. And again, if you just scroll down, they're all here. Here's some funky stuff I was trying to hack the program with that didn't work. But this is, again, like now we're generating in here in real time, and it all shows up like in one solid feed. Now they're going to switch this at some point. They said to having a more personalized collection so you can organize stuff. I would hope, again, from, what I really liked about Discord was being able to organize my own things by project and generate in different channels. So it wasn't all just in one feed. Hopefully they'll take that into account. But as you can see here, right, like we just typed in Jeep in Cusco, Peru, things came out pretty good. Now we can click into this, right? And basically it'll show you everything over here, the prompt, it'll have the different parameters. But also when you go down to here, this is one thing that I noticed too. Like this will save as like if you want to save these images, this will save as like a totally weird file format.
Yeah, like a web page file. So don't use that.
So just use download if you want to save these. That was like a little thing that I was like trying to figure out. I'm like, why is this downloading in a weird fashion? So didn't even know that this existed until I opened the little, hamburger over there. So now this is it's a little bit different than what it looked like on Discord. So now instead of just like that little re-roll button that they have on Discord, it actually says re-roll. So you can run it again. Super simple, right? If you want to do very strong, very subtle, if you're not familiar with those, very strong, I'll just take this image and vary it, but it will still stay close to the image, but it'll be a strong variation. Subtle will be like a very subtle variation. So if you want to do very subtle, you just hit that and you bang out very subtle. Remix, a little bit different because the window doesn't pop up on Discord anymore, right? Like if you hit remix, the prompt, everything's going to populate in the prompt bar. So when you hit remix up here, it'll just add this image and do this. And then if you wanted to remix it slightly, like, dusk, and then enter. And then you can remix still the same way that you were doing this in Discord.
And just a slight thing, but I love, right, like how you can enter that and there's not all this other stuff happening on your screen.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like you're just staying right where you're at. That's happening in the background, right? So if you look at that create tab in the upper left, 3 out of 4, right? So that's happening without you changing anything. So you could quickly, very subtle, do all those things that you want to do, and you're not losing your attention or your focus on what you have in front of you, which I think is sort of a small but big thing.
It's smart.
It's smart.
Yeah, I like that feature a lot because again, it's just like you get so lost, and if you're generating in a lot of images all at once and it's all populating, and of course New York in the background here is going to throw us a curveball, so I apologize. But yeah, like even just like, again, doing the same thing. So you can keep going or looking at this image or just scrolling through here, but you can have all this accessibility. So you don't just have to scroll through a Discord window, which is nice. Because even something like this, the use prompt button, it's like the best thing ever to me. Instead of copy paste, just bang, use prompt populates up here, hit enter, right? Even the image prompting, which let me close my window real quick. Because this is going to drive me nuts.
Hey, do your thing. So here's the other part about that, right? Like you can click the use prompt button, and then you can, before you run that, you could click the use image button also, right? If you want to use the image weighting, right? And so that's pretty sweet.
Because you can do this and then image weight it too, right? Like you can do IW. If anyone doesn't know what the image weight parameter is, It's essentially like if you're going to have a image prompt, an image in your prompt, and a text portion of your prompt, the image weight parameter will slide it to weight like one way or the other. So it'll focus more on the image or more on the text. It's a really good prompt if you're using image, or a really good parameter if you're using image prompts, because it's just going to help you get closer to it. So basically, the low end value is 0.25. That'll be close to the text itself. If you go up to 2, that'll be closer to the image. So it's like a sliding scale, right? I think they might be that might be something they want to add here if that was feedback from me, right? Like I think having something a little bit more clear about image weight, because if we do image weight like 1.5, right? Let's see if this is going to generate, and it should look very close to this photo versus if we did it in, image weight, use this prompt, let's do image weight 0.25. So those will look fairly the same, but also different because of this, right? As these are generating, one's going to look way closer to that initial image. The other one's probably going to look more so like a random generation. So yeah, it's really just it's ease of use when it comes to this little navigation bar that they've added here, or this navigation panel, whatever you want to call it, which I like. And also the other thing that's really cool here too, let's just say you wanted to do, use this prompt, get rid of you don't like this set of parameters, you can go to like another set. Like, let's just scroll down and I'll just find some random one that maybe, all right, I like this one. Cool. Let's do style raw, chaos 15, 916. We'll just click on all those. Maybe we like that set. Now you can generate with different parameter set of a different image. So it's super clean that way. And I like that.
And no more errors when you're prompting. I think
Yeah.
we've all experienced that where you like forgot to put a space in somewhere, you typed in the wrong button, the wrong key, and it's just like, damn.
You hit
so,
it's like
so that makes it a little bit cleaner and easier too. Rory, you're sharing your screen, so you can't see us, but we're getting a ton of questions.
Okay.
So I'm thinking just based on this, let's try to like rapid fire through these. I'll read them out loud. That way, if we need to still stay in, the site that you have it up. First question we got is, can you do batch generations like the brackets in Discord? Right. So I think he's talking about permutations.
Yeah. So let's do that real quick. So this was not working for me yesterday, and apparently it's working today. I went on Discord to kind of fire off on them, be like, guys, what's going on here? So let's just say, if you guys aren't familiar with permutations, this is like a massive hack of the program, because it'll just give you more options. So let's say we want to do, instead of this Jeep in Cusco, Peru, we want to do a yellow, red, green, blue Jeep in Cusco, Peru. So we want to change the color of the car right now. These brackets here, if you put these different variables within the brackets and separate them by commas, this will essentially generate 4 different outputs. So it'll be yellow Jeep in Cusco, Peru, red Jeep in Cusco, Peru, green Jeep, so on and so forth. So with that, now you can just hit enter one time and you get 4 generations. So you don't have to keep doing it. It was super useful in Discord because you didn't have to just copy paste everything, but now it's, it's even easier here. So again, like that's like a small hack, but yes, you can do that. You also, just for purposes here of exploration, I'm pretty sure you cannot do the repeat parameter anymore. If anyone's familiar with that, basically --R. And if you did --R and you put any number after it, it would be like --R5. It'll generate 5 times. Like I don't think that's available anymore. But let's test my theory.
While you're testing that, one other thing on permutations too. So Rory just gave you an example of the subject. You can also use permutations on some of the other things like stylize or image weight, right? So like one of the ways I used to use permutations a lot is if I was using image weighting, I would do some things like below the default one, and I would do things above the default one just to kind of see how those different variations would play out. So Rory's teeing up the stylized portion of that right now, but permutations are a very, very useful thing to save you some time and to like give you a really refined spectrum look at what you're creating, right? Because you don't know whether 1,000 stylized is going to be exactly what you want. So before you go down that rabbit hole, right, you're giving yourself like a broader spectrum of what you could have, and then you can dial in from there. So that's one of the ways that I like to use it.
I think that's probably how I use permutations the most is especially on the parameters, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because the thing that has the most variability in the prompt isn't going to be like the color of the car. Like stylized is going to work way different, but across from 0 to 1,000 than just changing the color of the car, right? So I boosted this up to turbo mode so we don't have to wait as long. But it's
There you go.
basically what I'm doing here. If everyone's not familiar, so like I'm using these brackets now to like instead of doing this in here, right? Instead of using the stylized slider in here, I'm just going to give it a bunch of different values so we can see what it looks like at different stylized, ranges. So when I hit this, it'll generate in stylized 0, 200, through 1,000 here. But you'll get a good sense of how the parameters work. Like that's a much better way to learn them, in my opinion, is with with these brackets here. So you can actually see the same image generated with the, just the one variable changed, which is the stylized, right? So you'll be able to see this over here, like style 0. There's not much going. It's very minimal, right? Like very minimalistic. It's not going to have a lot of the bells and whistles. It'll look almost, to me, sometimes it looks a lot realer. It takes away some of the
Yeah.
AI stuff. But as we get into stylized 200, you start to see a little bit more of this, like, Midjourney aesthetic coming through, a little bit more creativity. I actually like that one a lot. We get a little bit more gradient on the, a little bit more detail on the cars. You start to see the background get more defined. As we get up into 300, we start to get really creative here, like the background, the dirt, the dust on the car. And as we keep going 500, you're going to start to see this like dial up. And by the time we get to 1,000, it starts to look really different from when that original image set was. So yeah, you can see it's good for that. I mean, even if you're going to do, Jeep in Cusco, Peru, and you want to do this with, I wonder if C still works, since if it's called variety now, but I think chaos will work. So C, 0, 25, 50, 75, 100. So this one, if you're not familiar with this, chaos or variety now just varies your image grid, meaning that if you do chaos 0, right, it's just like all the images are going to generate in a pretty similar set. They're going to all look very similar. As you go to 100, all 4 images in the grid will start to look radically different. So you lose a little control of the prompt itself. But at the same time, if you're looking for something unique, using the chaos parameter or the variety parameter now can be helpful. So as you see at 0, these all look the same, right? Like they're all kind of in the same position. They look very similar. We start to get up to 25, the images all start to look different. The positioning of the car, the film stock, all of that. Get into 50, things start getting a little weird, right? Like it starts to get a little bit more experimental. 75, this is, I don't even know what this is, right? But this is what, if you're looking for
I'm assuming that's not what you want.
no. And this one's just an
Yeah,
alley.
I don't really go past. I don't know. Usually chaos, I keep it pretty low. You don't
Low
really
level.
have to rank. You don't have to dial up too much. But it is, to Rory's point, it's a great way to, like, if you're not sure what your prompt is going to get you, or you want to like explore the boundaries of what it could get you, it's a great way, to kind of factor that in. Also, one last thing on permutations. I know we have a few people in here that are sort of newer, and your stylized, when we walk through that example, I think that's just a good way to learn if you're new, right? Use the permutations with the parameters to really get a sense of, right, like that stylized, how, like what that spectrum looks like, chaos or variety now, what that spectrum looks like, weirdness, what that spectrum looks like, right? Because then you're gonna have like a baseline to work off of for your future use cases. So
let's walk through one more too, now that we're here, because these are the base parameters, right, that everyone's going to have to use at some point. So stylization, we did variety. Let's do weird right now, so everyone has a good understanding of what that is too. Just we'll rip through this one real quick, because I think this one is probably the most underutilized or least utilized parameter on here, but it can get some really good results because it just kind of breaks Midjourney out of its own like default aesthetic. So if we're going to do -- weird, these permutations, it goes 0 through 3,000. So it's a big range. Typically if you're doing lower levels, like let's see, 25, 50, those are going to look radically different from 300, 800, then, like 2,500 and then 3,000. Like, let's just see the variety range of how different this stuff produces at. So I actually think this stuff in turbo mode is producing faster within the website than it would on Discord right now, which is kind of nuts. But there's like, so weird 25, right? Like that's a low level of weird. Weird is the experimental parameter, just gives like a more unique look to the photo or the image or whatever you're trying to create. So it's not going to be as like aesthetically Midjourney in a sense. So, we get like definitely a different look here, right? Like this is different than any of these other images that we've generated, right? Like these are all without the weird. So,
if you're going for something that isn't so matter of fact,
yeah,
or objective, it's great too. And what I mean by that is if there's some artistic elements within what you're prompting, it's a great way to use weirdness. Great
totally.
way.
Totally. So like even this image, right? Like this is with 50. Like you're not I didn't prompt that, but it's still a good look, right? Like it's still like unique in terms of like what Midjourney typically produces. So this one we start to get into 300, right? Now we have like now this almost looks real. Like this looks like a, like a family like a family photo from like the 90s. But we start getting up into 800, things start getting a little weirder. 2,500. I don't even know what this is, but it's just fun to look at how this stuff goes. Like again, like where did this come from in Midjourney?
Somebody's
right?
album got uploaded and scraped.
Yeah,
I don't
like
know.
I can guarantee.
This got scraped from Facebook, maybe. I got a feeling. I don't know. Hey, let's bang through some more of these questions real
Let's
quick.
do that.
We've got let's see. Do you know if there will be a feature to save your own preset styles / tune you previously created? Yes. Like that was one of the things that they said was not going to be in V6. So I don't know, you're probably still going to I don't know if that's going to roll out to a later version of V6 and get updated, but they've already come out and said like with V6, you're not going to be able to use the tuning feature. So I don't know. That's just what we've been told. So I don't know. Take that for what it's worth. You probably still have to use that right in V 5.2.
Yeah, Meg, this one was I know you use it a lot, and this one for me was I was kind of like upset about it because typically, right, like I'm using I set it as a preferred option, so I can like just generate my own parameters. So it's like I'll label that, for example, Cusco, and it'll be like my style code that I just enter every single time. You can still do it as long as you have the preset codes. They just made it clunkier. So like I don't know about generating new tunes, but I think if you have your own set style codes, you can still use them. So like for example,
That's a good point. Yeah, you could still like if you go to your library or your archive, you can still use those codes. They still work, right?
Let's see if I can.
It's just that / tune is not going to be compatible with V6, right? So you're not going to be able to create new versions with V6. You would have to be in the model of 5.2 or
so if you
lower.
Yeah, and if you want to use it, you just go to an image that has it, one of your style codes, you just click it and add it, right? Like let's just do the same thing here. So now I can use one of my old style codes and that'll start to produce up at the top here. So you can still use them. I think, what was interesting about what Midjourney had said a while back was that they wanted to use that style tune as like almost like an intro for new users. So I think they might be rolling it out in that fashion pretty soon, like as a way to get people like, oh, this is how you figure out what you like and how to prompt. So that might be like their inbound sort of onboarding people. So I think that might be how they roll it out in the future, but I'm going to miss it if it's not available and they take it away from Discord. It's still available on Discord though. So, stay there where it's safe.
We also have a question about, let's see, the explore page. Let me find it. Where is it? I lost it. Somebody, oh, here we go. So my create page, this is my create page. I'm sorry. My create page is like the server I created on Discord.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I think I know what you're asking.
Yeah. It's where all your images will be housed. So
it's like your archive, right? Like
yeah.
If you were using the old Midjourney site before this one launched, like the phase 1 of this one, that was in sort of archive. And since it's been in the new site, they just renamed this. This used to just say My Images. They just named it Create. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So it's in the same place. Let's see. What else do we have?
Should we do the describe? I see Glenn has a question here about
yeah, we can jump into that. So that's a quick one. Glenn's asking, where's the describe or tuner? So we already talked about tune. We can show describe really quick.
So let's see. So basically, you don't type describe in anymore. You don't have to do that. It's got way more intuitive now. It's actually, to me, way better. So if you look at this, you hit the plus sign, and then you can either upload a file here for what you want to do, right? Like as soon as you upload a file, it'll get plugged in over here. And then from one of these images, right, you can take like any of these images. It's just this little eye button, here. That'll then produce like the describe in a sense. I think this also opens up a good talking point we'll get to in a second. But the subject here, like now you can choose between subject, like known artist, which is an interesting way to break this out, and then the descriptors. So all you have to do here is if you want to basically create your own describe, like the old describe would give you 4 prompts that they generated. You had no control. Like sometimes it just came out super wonky. And now you can take this and basically do what you want with it. And you can mix and match, let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do
you almost like had to, because it gave you 4 options.
Yeah.
It was almost like you just wanted to run them and then like refresh it to get 4 new ones to see like if those were any better too. And just kind of like what that looked like. And if you wanted to take parts of it, it was very difficult. It was a pain in the ass, which this now has those keywords bundled, into things that you can click to add, right? So you're not constrained to including all of it, and even if you didn't want to, it's just much easier. So I think that's sort of interesting too. Like you could take pieces. You don't have to do the whole thing. Versus before you almost had to copy paste. Oh, I don't want this word backspace. Something like, so I think this speeds up the process and obviously makes it easier for users too. So,
yeah. And I think the other thing that's interesting to note here is everyone has been concerned for a long time about the use of artist names, right? And like, was this data trained, was the model trained on their data? I think now you're seeing this with Midjourney. I've heard from a few people that artists are actually like really interested now in giving their art to Midjourney because of the exposure that comes with it. So the thing that they did here, which is a really nice shout out to the artist, I think, and again, it's just like you understand that they're listening, right? Is they have the link out now to the artist. So if you wanted to know who this guy was, you just click on this and it'll Google him for you. It'll take you right to his stuff. So I think that's like a nice bone that they threw. I mean, I don't think it's going to cover all the concerns, but again, it's like to me that incentivizes artists to want to give them their art, right? Because now it's like, okay, I'll have more exposure if people are using me in a prompt, which I think personally could be pretty cool as an artist, but some people probably don't feel that way. But yeah, again, also here too, coming off that diatribe, if you want to if this stuff doesn't look good to you, you just hit refresh, right? And refresh will give you a whole new set here that you can choose from. And, again, now we have something Red Bull Moto team, different artist, different descriptors, right? Working class empathy. I don't know how that one will come out, but either or, now that we've created over here, like this is what the new describe feature can do. And that's way closer than what it used to be in, majority of the time. So I think it's describe features really solid. One of my favorites.
I want to say they said something about the describe feature being a little bit better in V6. And I could see that maybe the most logical way that would make sense to me too is, and this kind of goes right into a question in here. We've got a question about how can Midjourney's architecture be adapted to handle more complex prompts and generate outputs with richer semantic understanding. So point is V6 is coming as early as next week. They've already said with V6 that the coherence is going to be better. There's going to be a huge jump in quality. I don't know to what extent that means in terms of the quality, like meaning, does that fix these far away shots of people where their faces are smushed, which has been one of my biggest gripes. Like, is it that kind of quality? Or are we just talking about richer, refined, resolution? Are we talking about all of the above? So I think that's interesting, but they've already said that the prompting coherence is going to be different. It's going to be better. which is going to change a little bit in terms of how you are prompting. I think that rolls hand in hand with how this describe function is supposedly going to get better, because, right, we've got some words in there that just don't really make a lot of sense. And I think if you've used describe enough, you know that sometimes it kind of gives you something that's close. And sometimes it's like, dude, how the hell did you get that? How the hell did you get that? Because this is not even close, right? And so I think that might have something to do with it. And what that means for all of us, right, is that to some degree, that prompting, maybe not the hierarchy, but the words that you use, the phrases that you use could become a little bit more coherent, similar to maybe like something like Dolly. I do think that's one thing that Dolly maybe does a little bit better, is the coherence.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll see to what extent, right?
Here's an interesting point on that too, right? Like for those who are beginners and like you're just starting to understand prompting and how it all works. Describe feature, like think about it from a philosophical standpoint. If this is how Midjourney is talking about breaking down your photo, like, or your image, like that's how you should do it, right? Because it's just the easiest way to get a structure. Because I think that's probably one of the hardest things that I was trying to learn in the beginning was like, how do I put these things in the right order to make them all like generate, right? So right here you have subject, known artist, descriptors, right? So obviously the subject, they want that to be the main focus. So if you're going to do that, put that first, right? Known artist, maybe that comes second. And then you add your descriptors. So if you're trying to build prompts, not just like in the describe feature, but just in general, like typically that's how it works. Now, to me, I've always found in the Discord version of this, whenever you were prompting Midjourney, it seemed like whatever was first, it hit on the most, like it weighted the most. So if it was, a motorcycle, a guy riding a motorcycle, it would focus on that. If it was, guy riding a motorcycle at dusk in the Moab desert, right? If you put the guy riding a motorcycle first, that's what it's going to focus on. If you put dusk first, like you might get more emphasis on like the lighting and the time of day. If you put Moab desert first, you might get more emphasis on the desert, and the guy in the motorbike might actually be like pushed back, or so on and so forth. So I think it's interesting now that this is their real way of doing it now. So you see how they kind of want it to be prompt, or how it's going to be prompted the best. So I hope that makes sense with what I'm trying to say. But like, again, they're giving you clues as to how to prompt better, essentially, with the describe feature.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've also got a question about, I think this kind of rolls into maybe this V6 update as well, but can you download a group of output images at once? I like, from what I know, they're working on sort of this batch feature, which, I don't know if that's part of it. I feel like I heard that was part of it, right? Like where you could grab multiple images and download at once. But outside of that, like, still download a group of output images. How would you do that?
I'm not sure. I've always done it if you know something, like share it, because I've always had individual images.
I was thinking, did I just like lose something in my brain? But I don't.
Do you mean like when the image grid used to populate and it was the 4 images and you could take all 4 images out at once? Because like when you did it in Discord, it would all 4 images would populate and you could just take that whole thing out instead of it just being like one individual image. Now it all generates separately instead of like in the grid format. So maybe that's what we mean here, because I haven't figured out how to take, like select multiple photos or images, whatever you want to call them, and then download them all at the same time. You can do like today, like I've seen. So let me show you real quick. I'll get back to here, go to the create page. So like you can download today's photos, right? Like you can do that in a batch. I don't think you can actually select just yet. Like if you wanted to go back to what you did yesterday also, like with yesterday, you can download all. So you're going to have to download, everything that you're generating. But I haven't figured out how to just select this photo, this photo, this photo, and just download those 3 without having to go into them individually and just hit download. So that's if you got some inside info, let us know.
Yeah.
There's
well, we got 15 minutes left. I would say if you've got any other questions, throw them in. We've tried to like dive in and show you guys a little bit within what this new UI looks like, the capabilities, the prompting inside, right? We also know that we've talked about V6, which is right around the corner, and what that means. So, this website is really part one of the equation. I think the more exciting part is V6 and what that means,
Yeah.
right? Because we've had, some challenges, right, with things like text and how's that going to look in V6. They've said something along the lines of, hey, like single word prompting or single text should be pretty good. Beyond that, don't know, right? Like, but even that would be major, right? Because that's something that, oh man, if you know, right? Like you could vary region and try to specify, hey, I want to see in here, and it'd still take you like 10 re-rolls to get, so you can do it that way, or hopefully that gets better with V6. So I think that's important. Similar to sort of this idea of batching. We've also been told about categories, folders, organization. That's important. That's huge, right? And I think that really goes hand in hand with how clean and simple they've sort of made this. And one of the gripes maybe that I have right now is in the past, right? Like one of the ways that I would sort my archive or things that I've created is by upscales, right? And so like if I wanted to go back and look at everything I've upscaled, then I know, hey, look, like this at one point felt like it was worthy to upscale. And then I would have sort of another filter on top of that, whether or not I've rated it, right? So that was kind of like my workflow. I don't know if that was the intent. I don't know if a lot of people did it that way, but right now in this system, it doesn't really allow for that, right? Because you're almost already given the upscaled image. You can't really filter that way, So I feel like that might be almost on purpose to get you to use the rating a little bit more. And I know that they're focused on the rating too, with sort of V6 and rolling that out and getting feedback and all of those things. By the way, if you've not been using rating, do it. Especially if you're looking for some free hours here and there. Like sometimes I've gotten a free hour just by going through like old photos and starting to rate them, So like I think if you're like the top 2,000 people that have rated for a particular day, they throw in a free fast hour for you. So I mean,
good to know. I missed that one along the way. I'll take a free hour here and there. That's good. I like the other thing that I think is interesting here is the people that are, the one concern that I had, and I shared it yesterday, is that the thing about Discord was cool because you were using it, if you were using it for teams, right? Like if you were in a team setting and you're using this for multiple projects, right? Like you're actually like utilizing this in the business. You could siphon different project channels in Discord and you could just focus specifically on there, but you could also have shared spaces, which I hope they bring into this community, because I liked being able to be in another channel or in a channel with someone and like watching what they're doing too, because it's a good way to like learn and collaborate on stuff and just pick up different things. So I hope that they bring that back, or the ability to do that, because now it feels like we're in ChatGPT, right? Like now it feels like we're in our own little window. You can't really collaborate with many people in there. But if Discord, it felt a little bit more communicative in that sense. So I'm really hoping they bring that in some way, shape, or form. Like if there's a way to, I know they don't want to really look at like enterprise and things like that, but hopefully they understand that people do like to do this stuff together and like learn together.
Yeah, I think they're going to have to, right? And like we've talked about sort of the uniqueness of Midjourney compared to these other tools. They focused a lot on community. Maybe that's partly through, leveraging something like Discord, but that seems to be their MO. They're very dialed into users, user feedback, doing things sort of a little bit differently than everybody else. And that community aspect is sort of a differentiator for them. So I would hope so, right? And I think that's a great point. I mean, that's an insanely powerful, I think, sort of little benefit on the side that most people don't even really think about.
Yeah.
You've got another question about V6. How does one join and get access to the new V6? Do you sign in directly on their website? I mean, it should just be there one day, based on the way Midjourney does things. I mean, they're probably just going to announce it. Well, I don't know. Probably in Discord, maybe drop it on Twitter, like a little whisper in the wind, and then all of a sudden it's there, and then our mind's blown, because of how crazy it is. But yeah, like essentially, that sliders tab that we were showing you earlier has the different models you can choose from. So I would just imagine it's going to show up. This is usually how they do stuff. And they've said that they're going to start sort of the rating testing this weekend and try to get that wrapped up for next week.
Yeah, this is, and just again, to reiterate, if people are joining us late, you can't get access to the site yet, and unless you've generated 10,000 images on Midjourney previously. So that's just one thing. I think, again, probably had some people join us late after.
And that's the alpha site, guys. So that's with the prompting inside it. That was what all those things that we just showed you today that Rory was clicking on. That's with the alpha version, right? Which is the 10,000 plus. Otherwise, this site has been there. You just couldn't prompt inside it.
Yeah. So it's, I think, I'm a little bit torn. I'm going to be honest.
You and me both. Because we talked about at the beginning. I mean, that custom zoom and the very region thing, like if you get a good image in there and then you just can't do anything about it. It's like, dang.
The other thing is Discord has integrations too. So like you can do different things with Discord. I mean, that's the one. I think everyone gets so hung up on the UX there and it just doesn't look pretty, right? But like it's very utilitarian in terms of like what it can do. It doesn't have to be. I'm thinking outside of just Midjourney, right? Like I'm thinking about like workflows and what people are doing, on their teams and automation and stuff like that. And like Discord's like a pretty powerful tool. So, it was good for a long time. I hope they keep it open. I just hope they keep that option available because I still like it. And I use it for a lot of food now. I mean, it's just, Discord can thank Midjourney, I think, for a lot of Discord users now because we wouldn't have been on it. I know I wouldn't have been just like firing away on it. I still couldn't.
I always joke with people. I'm like, dude, whoever's in charge of user acquisition and growth over there had to be prefacing this with their boss months ago. Because I mean, that skyrocket and rocket ship that they had with usership and millions of people using Midjourney and using Discord just for Midjourney. Is a spike, right? And so it'll be interesting. I agree, right? Like with some of these voids that still exist, I'm still using Discord, even in the past 2 days since they've announced this, I've probably got 50-50. It just depends, right? Like I obviously want to get a full grasp and understanding of the way the new site and prompting works.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, like if there are certain things that I do want to think about, maybe very regional, I want to think specifically about, hey, am I going to need to resize this or something like that? Probably go back to Discord. Same with your individual like workflow channel. I want to keep certain things in a certain place. I might just keep using that for now.
Yeah. We got 2 good questions here. I just saw from,
let's bubble this one up.
Yeah.
Nancy says, in past updates, is there a considerable difference in versions?
Yes. So simple answer, like V4 to V5 was massive. Like it went from like child's play to like, you could pass this off as reality. V4 was good, but you had to really know what you were doing to get something good. And it was still like a slot machine. Like you could pull it 100 times and maybe you get 3 or 4 like really insanely good images. V5 became less of a slot machine. That became, you could type in 2 words and get something that looked, really solid.
Slot machine, like that analogy. Yeah. That's kind of the way it felt. Right.
Yeah. And now, Drew's mentioned this a few times. The jump from V5 to V6 is supposed to be bigger than, was it 3 to 4? And 3 was like nightmare fuel, like 3 was like you would not even come close to like an image. It would just be like a bunch of jumbled pixels and like
3 was like, I'm not sure if I'm ready to play with this tool yet. Like I'm not sure I have the patience for this tool yet.
Yeah, but it's good. Like I've been using this analogy a lot with everyone lately. It's like the tools it's so much easier to learn the tools as they develop versus trying to like take it on when it's fully blown out. So think about like giving your grandparents an iPhone right now and saying, learn it, right? Like this is going to be totally like reading hieroglyphics for them. But us, because, most of us grew up having an iPhone, we were there for every iteration. It's like second nature of it. So that's the same way I think about tools in general, AI, right? Not just Midjourney, but the AI tools. It's like, learn it when the tools are developing. And when the tools get good, you're going to be an expert. You're going to be really good at them. So you ride the wave of like all the weird developments and the bumps and bruises that you take along the way. But then when something like this updates and you're like, all right, like I'm ready to fire. So it's, I just think about that as like how all of this is developing.
Yeah.
I think,
hey, and shout out to Nancy, by the way.
Yeah. What's up,
Shout out to
Nancy?
Nancy. It's a good one. We've got a couple more questions here and we'll wrap this up. So Bill asked, how do I find out how many images I've generated? Rory, if you know something different in terms of this, let me know. But I think you still need to go to Discord for this. Yeah. That's /info on Discord. Give it a minute. It'll tell you how many images you've generated. If it's over 10K, utilize that alpha.midjourney.com and you got your answer.
Yeah.
You've got access. Jason, good guy here, asked, any update on the 3D functionality you mentioned in the last presentation? It's just a beyond thing, right? Like, so what I mean by that is that's something that's happening after V6. They've said a few things. I don't know that there's much else outside of what we've already talked about, right? So they're basically adapting models after V6 is what they've said for diverse applications. So, they're advancing towards sort of that 3D interactive storytelling video sort of component. They're going to start to train video models. And what they've said that I think is super interesting too, is that this is not going to be like other video models. What does that mean? What the hell does that mean? Right. So it is interesting. One of the things that we brought up in our last discussion, Rory, that I think like kind of blew some people's minds was this idea that you could almost like create an image and then step inside of that scene that you've created and basically get different angles of anything else in that scene. That could be it. Possibly. We'll see. There's just not a lot of info being shared there, but I do know that it's exciting nonetheless. And based on the way that they're developing these things, they've been working on that for a while. So I would imagine we'd see that pretty soon, or at least a starting version of that pretty soon.
Yeah, and if anyone's like really wants to nerd out on this stuff, I'm going to be just totally honest here. Like, you go in the Discord channel, and in the Midjourney server, there's a lot of discussion channels, and Midjourney is actually really good at responding to things. So if you have questions, concerns, I mean, it's a little bit of chaos in there. There's a lot of people that are moving and grooving. It's kind of like, it feels like the Wild West. It feels like you're doing something wrong with how much action's in there. But there's a lot of good things, especially on like updates. If you have, they take feedback really well. So they have a lot of feedback channels. If you want to go and throw some stuff in there, a lot of times you'll get a response. I get a response like 95% of the time when I drop something in there. Like last night, I was concerned about the permutation feature, and I was just like, "Is you guys gonna add this?" Because that was kind of like one of the bigger things, for prompting. And they were like, "Oh, wait, it's like, is it not working for you?" I was like, "No." And then this morning it was. So I don't know if that was just an individual problem I had, but they still got back to me, which is nice. So if you have any questions and you need help, right, like with not even like that, maybe you have some billing or some, this is like very minute stuff, but it's happened to me. So if you have like some billing problems or some subscription problems or something's not working, go into their Discord channel, ask them a question, you're going to get an answer. So just a little caveat, like a little tip there. If anyone really wants to,
nice little tip. I don't even mess around in there. So I think that's
fun. It's chaos.
That's important to know. I don't know how much chaos I need at this point in time.
Variety, like
variety. There we go. Love it.
The users in there, they're pretty helpful too. So there's a lot of this is what it was built for, right? Like, it was built for community. So there are some really good users in there, and I'll go and like check out what they do, and I'll go check out their work, and I'm like, okay, this is some really interesting stuff. So it's a good way to data source as well in there. But they also ask, they have not public forums, of course they have those, but they have surveys. Like, I saw a lot of that based on the website recently. It was like, what's more important to you? Would you like X or Y? Would you like X or Y? And it's like, there's 1,000 votes on each option. So people are in there. People are giving feedback. They're taking it.
I'm gonna need to play around in there.
Yeah, it's once you get in there, it's like you check in every day. Then.
Well, hey, we're almost at time. Like, I'm wondering if I should run through these V6 updates real quick.
Do it.
Leave it on an exciting note here as well. Like what's ahead. So let me see if I can share my screen here. That way I don't miss anything, and I'll just give you guys a taste into this so you can read at your own speed too. I mean, we've talked about the jump, right? We talked about the jump V3 to V4, much more realistic. The words, textures, lighting, better textures, lighting, better upscaler.
Cool.
Right. So that's interesting. Image prompting, much more powerful.
Interesting.
I think that was an oversight. I don't know that I really paid attention to that bullet, but that's really, really interesting.
Image prompting is underutilized just in general. I don't think
Totally.
So,
I think you might have originally put me on to that using it more heavy months ago. I don't think I was using it a whole lot. And then all of a sudden, I mean, it's such a powerful tool, right? Especially if you're trying to replicate something that's like, I've got a client right now. I'm trying to recreate a piece of technology that there's just not a lot of data on that's been scraped.
Yeah.
So you get, you almost have to really utilize that image prompting to try to refine some of the accuracy. The grid sizes are interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, I was going to say, you can do some crazy stuff with image prompting. Like you can basically, if you have, there's a little hack here for anyone who's still hanging around. Basically, if you image prompt, you can really take one asset and turn it into 1,000. So if you're a brand and you have, lifestyle photography and it's in a very specific, like strong look and feel, you can take that image and basically, number one, you can break it down with Describe now, so you can get it into building blocks and basically turn it from an image into like text building blocks. And then you can build off of that with image prompting and make like 1,000 variations of it. So, once you start understanding how the features can intertwine together too, it starts to get really powerful.
That is a really good point, Rory. I don't know that we've probably dived into that as much as we should. But that is a really great point, because there's just so many avenues that you can go down into to ultimately try to get to your end outcome that you're searching for. And I think maybe right now people think that they have maybe one or two options, but there are just so many different ways you can get there. And I think that's part of the fun in some ways. It can also be a little bit, you can get a little bit impatient too at some point. Once you've tried a few things, you're like, damn, I can't get there. Right. I think that's just sort of the reality. Hopefully that improves as well. But yeah, I think that's a really good point. Maybe we might have to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. I think we might have to do something on it. We'll see what we can come up with there. Didn't mean to interrupt the flow. But
no, you're good. I think so. I'm just going to run through these because I know we're over. Yeah. Look, I mean, grid sizes, we've got a lot of 4x4 right now, right? But like 2x2, 8x8, that's interesting. Yada, yada, yada. This is, I think,
grid sizes, is that going to be different? So you're going to be able to generate 8 images by 8, or you're going to be able to generate 8 images instead of 4?
That's the way that I understand it.
Yeah. Oh. I missed that one. Didn't pick that one up.
That is interesting. We talk about this every time, I swear, but somebody did ask about character consistency. That's one of the next big priorities that they're working on. They also said style consistency as well. We talked about 3D video, just some other anecdotes here. And I don't know. I mean, this was the other point. Just they're exploring different models based on speed, cost, and quality trade-offs.
So that specifically was happening in the Discord channel the other day. So I saw that's really what they were asking. So they were basically like, would you rather have higher quality images that take longer, or would you rather have lower quality images that are faster? So like things like this, where you don't think you have a say in a brand that's building a product, like they're taking direct feedback there. So if you care and if you want to be part of it, you can go vote, you can go voice your opinion on their channels. That might not be for everybody. You might not give a crap at all, but I'm just saying, like, if you want to say, it's there. And there's a lot of people that are really like putting their voice out there in the channels. It's kind of funny, but
I love it.
Yeah. Just another little tidbit here to end this thing. But I think we covered a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah, man. I think so too. Hopefully, you guys got a lot of value out of that. We tried to answer as many questions as we could on here as well. So we understand that we've got some people that are brand new to this. We've got other people that are, OGs, real Discord heavy since V3, V4 kind of stuff. So bear with us. We hope that was helpful and valuable. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see you guys again next time.
Dude,
later.
Good as always. I'll catch you later, man.
Hi, brother. See ya.